The message came at midnight Earth time. It was not a request. It was not a negotiation. It was an ultimatum. Admiral stood in the underground command center, 3 kilometers beneath the Pacific Ocean. The walls around him were made of reinforced steel and concrete. They had been built to survive anything: nuclear weapons, asteroid strikes, even the weapons of alien fleets. For 200 years, humanity had prepared for this moment. The holographic display in front of him showed the message from the galactic hegemony. The words floated in the air, written in the common language of the galaxy. Species 7291. Designation: human. Your world has been evaluated. Your technology is primitive. Your military strength is insignificant. You have 72 standard hours to surrender your planet to hegemony control. Resistance will result in complete extinction. This is not a warning. This is a fact. Read the message 3 times. His face showed no emotion. He had known this day would come. Every human leader for the past 2 centuries had known. The galaxy was not a peaceful place. It was a jungle, and humanity had been pretending to be a small, harmless animal. The pretending was about to end. He turned to his communications officer, a young woman named. She was 28 years old and had spent her entire adult life training for this moment. Everyone in this facility had. "Send the response," said. His voice was calm and steady. Nodded, her fingers moved across her console. The response was short, only 3 words. "We decline respectfully." Somewhere in space, millions of kilometers away, the commanders of the hegemony fleet received this message. They laughed. They had conquered thousands of worlds. They had destroyed hundreds of species that tried to resist. What could one small planet do against the greatest military force in the galaxy? They would learn. Very soon they would learn. In the command center, walked to a different console. This one was older than the others. It had been built 200 years ago, when humanity first discovered they were not alone in the universe. When they realized the galaxy was full of powerful, aggressive civilizations that viewed weaker species as resources to be exploited. The console had one button, a red button protected by a glass cover. Lifted the cover. He did not press the button yet. First, he spoke to the people around him. "Today we stop hiding," he said. "Today we show the galaxy what humanity really is. For 200 years we have pretended to be weak. We let them scan our planet. We let them see our primitive rockets and our simple weapons. We let them believe we were nothing." He paused. Everyone in the room was watching him. "But while they watched our surface, we built something else. Something they never imagined. Something that will change everything." He pressed the button. Deep beneath the ocean floor, machines that had been sleeping for decades began to wake up. Power systems activated. Lights turned on in corridors that had been dark for years. Computer systems started running checks and diagnostics. Project Veil was activating. 5,000 kilometers away, in another underwater facility, Captain received the signal. She was sitting in her quarters, reading a book about ancient Earth history. When the alert came, she put down the book and smiled. She had waited her entire life for this moment. Her mother had waited. Her grandmother had waited. 4 generations of her family had served on this project, and none of them had lived to see it activated. Now, finally, it was happening. Stood up and walked to the door of her quarters. The corridor outside was filling with people. Men and women in naval uniforms, all moving with purpose. There was no panic, no confusion. Everyone knew exactly what to do. "All hands to stations," the intercom announced. "This is not a drill. Repeat, this is not a drill. Project Veil is now active." Made her way to the bridge. It took her 15 minutes to get there because the ship was very large. The largest thing humans had ever built. The largest thing any species in the known galaxy had ever built. When she reached the bridge, her crew was already at their stations. 200 officers, the best humanity had to offer. They had trained in simulators for years. They knew this ship better than they knew their own homes. "Status report," said as she took her seat in the captain's chair. "All systems online," her first officer reported. His name was and he had served with for 15 years. "Power core is stable. Weapons systems are charging. Shield generators are at full capacity." "What about the hegemony fleet?" asked. Another officer answered. His name was Wu and he was in charge of sensors. 742 vessels, Captain. They are holding position at the edge of the solar system. Standard invasion formation. Nodded. 700 ships. The hegemony thought that was more than enough to conquer Earth. They had conquered larger planets with smaller fleets. They did not know what was waiting for them. "Begin ascent," ordered. "Take us up slowly." The ship began to rise. It had been resting on the ocean floor for 50 years, hidden beneath layers of rock and sand. Special materials in its hull made it invisible to sensors. The hegemony had scanned Earth dozens of times over the centuries. They had never detected anything. Now the hiding was over. The ship rose through the dark water. It was so large that it created currents that could be felt hundreds of kilometers away. Fish and whales fled from its path. The ocean itself seemed to tremble. On the surface, people around the world stopped what they were doing. They felt the earthquakes. They saw the ocean begin to churn and bubble. They knew what was happening. They had been told just hours ago that this day would come. Every government on Earth had made the same announcement. Every news channel had broadcast the same message. "Do not be afraid. What you are about to see is humanity's secret, our hope, our protector. For 200 years we have prepared. Now the time has come." The ship broke the surface. It was night in this part of the Pacific, but the ship brought its own light. Thousands of lights along its hull turned on, illuminating the dark ocean. The water cascaded off its sides like waterfalls. People on islands hundreds of kilometers away could see it. Satellites in orbit captured images and sent them around the world. Within minutes, every human being on Earth had seen the ship. It was 3 kilometers long. 3 kilometers of metal and technology that should not exist. The hegemony believed humans could barely build ships that left their own atmosphere. This ship was larger than most space stations in the galaxy. Its name was painted on the side in Korean characters and translated into the common galactic language. It meant all under heaven. In the command center beneath the Pacific, Admiral watched the ship rise. He felt pride but also sadness. His grandfather had worked on this project. His father had died protecting its secret. So many people had sacrificed so much to build this ship. Now, the galaxy would see what human determination could create. "Sir," said, "the hegemony fleet is reacting. They are sending scouts toward Earth." "Let them come," said, "let them see." In space, the hegemony commanders were confused. Their sensors were showing something impossible. A ship was rising from Earth's ocean. A ship larger than anything they had ever seen. "That cannot be correct," the fleet commander said. His name was and he had led hundreds of successful invasions. "Scan again." His officers scanned again. The results were the same. "Commander," one officer said, his voice shaking, "the ship is 3 standard units long. Its power output is. I do not understand these readings. It is higher than our entire fleet combined." Stared at the display. For the first time in his long career, he felt something he had not felt in centuries. "Fear. Send a message to the High Council," he ordered. "Tell them we may need reinforcements." On the captain watched the stars appear above her ship as it rose higher. Soon, they would leave the ocean behind. Soon, they would enter space, where the enemy was waiting. She thought about her grandmother, who had died 10 years ago. Her grandmother had been one of the first engineers to work on the. She had spent 50 years of her life on this project. "I wish you could see this," grandmother whispered. Captain said, "We are receiving a message from the hegemony fleet." "Put it through." A new voice filled the bridge. It was the enemy commander. "Unknown vessel. Identify yourself immediately. You are interfering with a sanctioned hegemony operation. Power down your systems and prepare to be boarded." Smiled, the enemy still did not understand. They still thought they were in control. She pressed a button on her chair and responded. "This is Captain of the Earth vessel. We have received your ultimatum. We have chosen to decline. If you wish to take our planet, you are welcome to try." There was a long silence, then spoke again, and this time his voice was less confident. "You are making a serious mistake, human. The hegemony does not accept defiance. Your primitive ship, however large, cannot stand against our fleet." Looked at her crew. They were all smiling. They knew something that did not. "Commander," she said, "in 72 hours you will have a choice. You can leave our solar system peacefully, or you can learn why humanity has survived alone for so long, on a planet full of predators, in a universe full of dangers." She ended the transmission. They continued to rise, leaving the ocean behind, heading toward the stars. Behind it, on the planet below, 8 billion humans watched and waited. They did not know exactly what would happen next. But for the first time in 200 years, they were not afraid. The game had changed. The prey had become the predator. And the galaxy was about to learn what humanity was truly capable of. They rose through Earth's atmosphere like a mountain learning to fly. Inside the ship, 12,000 crew members worked at their stations. They had trained for years in simulations. Now, for the first time, they were doing it for real. Captain sat in her chair on the bridge, watching the main display. The blue sky outside the windows slowly turned dark as they left the atmosphere behind. Stars appeared, bright and clear. And beyond the stars, she could see the lights of the enemy fleet. 742 ships, waiting at the edge of the solar system. "Captain," said Wu, the sensor officer, "the enemy fleet is holding position. They have not moved since we emerged." "They are confused," said from his station next to. "They do not know what to do." Nodded, she understood the enemy's problem. Their entire strategy was based on the belief that humans were primitive, weak, easy to conquer. The existence of the changed everything. "How long until we reach optimal position?" she asked. 47 minutes, Captain." Settled back in her chair. 47 minutes. In 47 minutes, the galaxy would change forever. Deep inside the ship, Chief Engineer was running final checks on the power core. The core was the heart of and it was humanity's greatest secret. For centuries, scientists across the galaxy had believed that certain types of energy generation were impossible, too dangerous, too unstable. Human scientists had proven them wrong. The core was called a gravity well generator. It created a miniature black hole contained within powerful magnetic fields. The energy it produced was almost limitless. It was this energy that powered the weapons and shields. No other species had ever built anything like it. They had all tried and failed. The physics were too difficult, the risks too great, but humans were different. Humans had a talent for doing the impossible. Checked the readings on his console. Everything was stable. The core was performing exactly as designed. "How does it feel?" asked one of his engineers, a young man named, "to finally see it work in real conditions?" Thought about the question. He had spent 20 years of his life working on this engine, his entire career. His marriage had ended because of the long hours and the secrecy. He had sacrificed everything for this moment. "It feels like the beginning of something new," he said. "Something wonderful and terrifying at the same time." Nodded, he understood. They all understood. What they were doing today would change human history forever. On the bridge, received a communication from Admiral. His face appeared on her personal screen. Captain, we are receiving messages from the Hegemony High Council. They are demanding to know the origin of our technology. They believe we must have received help from another civilization. Smiled. Of course they believed that. The idea that humans had developed this technology alone was unthinkable to them. What should I tell them, Admiral? Nothing, said. Let them wonder, let them fear. The communication ended. Looked out at the stars again. Somewhere in that vast darkness, the most powerful government in the galaxy was having an emergency meeting because of one human ship. In the crew quarters, off-duty personnel gathered in common rooms to watch the events on display screens. Lieutenant sat with her friends, watching the stars scroll past as the ship moved. I never thought I would see this day, she said. My mother told me stories about when I was a child. I thought they were just stories. We all thought that, said her friend, a weapons officer named. The secrecy was so complete. Even people who worked on the project could not tell their families. Thought about her father. He had been an engineer on the for 30 years. He had never told her anything about his work. She had grown up thinking he was just a regular naval officer. Only after his death had she learned the truth. He would be proud, she whispered, so proud. The ship continued its journey, moving past the moon, heading toward the outer planets. The enemy fleet remained at the edge of the solar system, watching. On the Hegemony flagship, Commander stood before his officers. They were all experienced soldiers. They had fought in dozens of wars and conquered countless worlds. But today, they looked afraid. What do our sensors tell us about the human ship? Demanded. The readings are difficult to interpret, Commander, said his science officer. The ship has some kind of energy field that interferes with our scans, but we have been able to determine some basic facts. Tell me. The ship is approximately 3 standard units in length. Its mass is enormous, far greater than any vessel in our fleet. It appears to be powered by an energy source we do not recognize. The power output is troubling. How troubling? The science officer hesitated. Commander, that single ship is producing more energy than our entire fleet combined, possibly more energy than our entire military force across the galaxy. Silence fell over the bridge, felt his heart's beating faster. This was impossible. Humans were supposed to be primitive. They had been monitored for centuries. They had shown no signs of advanced technology. How did they hide this from us? He asked. We do not know, Commander. Our surveillance of Earth has been extensive. We detected nothing. Made a decision. Signal the High Council. Request permission to retreat and reassess. Commander, one of his officers looked shocked. Retreat without engaging the enemy. I have led invasions for 400 years, said. I have learned when to fight and when to gather more information. We came here expecting to conquer a primitive world. That world is not primitive. Until we understand what we are facing, we will not risk this fleet. The message was sent. The response from the High Council came quickly. Permission. You will proceed with the invasion as planned. The reputation of the hegemony cannot be damaged by retreat. If one ship has intimidated our fleet, all of our conquered worlds will begin to question our power. You will destroy the human vessel and complete the conquest of Earth. This is a direct order. Read the message and felt something cold settle in his stomach. The High Council did not understand. They were far away, safe in their fortress worlds. They had not seen the human ship with their own eyes. They did not feel what he felt when he looked at it. But orders were orders. Prepare the fleet for engagement, he said quietly. We attack in 6 hours. On the sensor officer Wu detected the change immediately. Captain, the enemy fleet is moving. They are forming attack formations. Stood up from her chair, time to intercept. 6 hours at their current speed. 6 hours, nodded slowly. She had hoped the enemy would be smart enough to retreat. She had hoped they would understand the situation and leave peacefully, but she had prepared for this possibility. All hands battle stations, she announced over the ship's intercom. This is not a drill. Enemy fleet is approaching. We will engage in 6 hours. Throughout the ship, 12,000 crew members moved to their combat positions. Weapon systems came online. Shield generators charged to full power. Fighter bays prepared for launch. In the engineering section, increase the output of the gravity well generator. The core hummed with energy, ready to deliver everything the ship needed. Captain contacted Admiral on Earth. Admiral, the enemy is coming. They did not take our offer to leave peacefully. His face was calm on the screen. We expected this. The hegemony has ruled through fear for thousands of years. They cannot allow a small planet to defy them without consequences. Then we will show them consequences, said. Captain, remember our goal. We do not want to conquer the galaxy. We do not want to become what they are. We only want to be left alone. If you can end this without destroying their entire fleet, do so. Show them our strength, but also show them our mercy. Understood. Humanity had spent 200 years building the not to become an empire, but to protect their home. They did not want war. They wanted peace. But they would fight if they had to. I understand, Admiral. We will do what is necessary, nothing more. The communication ended. Looked around her bridge at her crew. These men and women had trained their entire lives for this moment. They were ready. In 6 hours, she said, we will meet the enemy. Many of you have wondered what this ship can really do. You have only seen simulations. Today, you will see the real thing. She paused, looking at each officer in turn. The galaxy believes humans are weak. They believe we are prey. Today, we teach them a new lesson. Today, they learn that humanity is not weak. We are patient. We are clever. And when someone threatens our home, we are the most dangerous species in the universe. The bridge crew responded with determined nods. No one was afraid. They had prepared for this moment their entire lives. The continued moving toward its position. The enemy fleet drew closer, and the galaxy watched, waiting to see what would happen when the unstoppable force met the immovable object. In 6 hours, everyone would have their answer. The stars seemed brighter than ever as the great ship sailed through the darkness of space. Its lights blazed like a challenge to the universe. It was beautiful and terrible, a symbol of everything humanity could achieve when threatened. Captain sat in her chair, watching the enemy fleet on her display. 700 ships, thousands of weapons, millions of soldiers. Against one ship, one human ship. She smiled. They had no idea what was coming. The 6 hours passed slowly. Every minute felt like an hour. Every hour felt like a day. But finally the time came. The hegemony fleet approached the imperfect formation. 742 ships, arranged in a pattern that had conquered 1,000 worlds. At the front were the assault cruisers, fast and deadly. Behind them came the battleships, massive vessels bristling with weapons. And at the center, surrounded by escorts, was the flagship where Commander watched and waited. The captain stood at the center of her bridge. Her crew was silent, focused on their stations. Every system was ready. Every weapon was charged. The ship hummed with power like a great beast preparing to strike. Enemy fleet is entering weapons range, Wu announced. They are preparing to fire. Raise shields, ordered, full power. Around something incredible happened. A sphere of light appeared, surrounding the entire ship. It glowed with a soft blue color, beautiful and strange. This was the ship's defensive shield, powered by the gravity well generator. The hegemony officers stared at their sensors in confusion. They had never seen anything like this shield. Its energy readings were off the scale. What is that? Demanded. Unknown, Commander. Some kind of defensive barrier. We cannot analyze it. Fire anyway. All ships, concentrate fire on the human vessel. 700 ships opened fire at once. Thousands of energy beams streaked through space, heading toward the The barrage was enormous, enough firepower to destroy a small moon. The beams hit the shield and disappeared. The blue sphere absorbed every shot. There was no explosion, no impact. The energy simply vanished into the shield, swallowed like water into sand. On this bridge, the crew watched calmly. They had expected this. They knew what their shields could do. "Shield status?" asked. 100%, Captain, reported. "No damage. The enemy weapons are too weak to penetrate." Nodded. This was the first surprise for the hegemony. Their weapons, which had conquered thousands of worlds, were useless against human shields. "Open a channel to the enemy fleet," she ordered. The channel opened. Commander's face appeared on the screen. He looked pale, his eyes wide with something that might have been fear. "Commander," said calmly, "as you can see, your weapons cannot harm us. I am giving you one more chance. Withdraw from our solar system. Leave us in peace. We do not wish to destroy your fleet." Stared at her for a long moment. Then he laughed, though the laugh was hollow and forced. "One ship cannot defeat an entire fleet. You may have strong shields, but you cannot fight back. Eventually, your power will run out. Eventually, your shields will fall. And when they do, we will destroy you." Sighed. She had hoped he would be reasonable. She had hoped they could avoid what was about to happen. "Very well, Commander. You have made your choice. Now witness ours." She nodded to her weapons officer, who had been waiting at her station. "Target their lead cruiser," said. "Main cannon, minimum power." "Minimum power, Captain." "Minimum power. Let us not be wasteful." Entered the commands. Deep inside in a chamber the size of a sports stadium, the main weapon prepared to fire. It was called the Singularity Lance, and it was humanity's most terrible creation. A single beam of light shot from the front of It was thin, no wider than a human arm. It looked almost gentle compared to the massive barrage the enemy had fired. The beam hit the lead cruiser. The cruiser was 1 kilometer long, crewed by 3,000 soldiers. It had survived dozens of battles. Its armor was the strongest the hegemony could build. It lasted 1 second. The beam cut through the cruiser like it was made of paper. The ship did not explode immediately. Instead, it seemed to collapse inward as if being crushed by an invisible hand. Then, with a flash of light, it was gone. Not destroyed, gone. Nothing remained, not even debris. Silence fell over both fleets. On the hegemony ships, officers stared at their sensors in disbelief. One shot at minimum power had completely erased one of their cruisers. What happened to it?" Someone on's bridge whispered. "The weapon created a localized gravity anomaly," the science officer said, his voice shaking. "It compressed the cruiser into nothing. The ship and everyone on it have been reduced to matter so dense it is essentially invisible." Felt his legs weaken. He grabbed his chair for support. In his long career, he had never seen anything like this. No one had. Spoke again. Her voice was broadcast to every ship in the enemy fleet. "That was our weakest weapon, fired at minimum power. Our shields have absorbed your entire barrage without losing a single % of their strength. Commander, I am asking you one more time. Leave. Now. We do not want more bloodshed." There was a long pause. Then, one by one, ships in the hegemony fleet began to turn. First the smaller escorts, then the cruisers, then the battleships. Their crews had seen enough. They did not want to share the fate of the destroyed cruiser. "No," shouted. "Stop, this is treason. You will all be executed." But his officers were not listening. They were already plotting courses away from Earth, away from the human ship, away from certain death. Only the flagship remained, surrounded by its escorts. Stood alone on his bridge, watching his fleet scatter like frightened animals. "Commander," his first officer said quietly, "we should leave. There is nothing we can do here." Wanted to argue, he wanted to fight. His pride demanded it. But he looked at the human ship on his display, glowing with that terrible blue light, and he knew the truth. He was defeated. "All ships," he said, his voice barely a whisper, "retreat to Rally Point 7. We will regroup." The flagship turned and fled with the rest of the fleet. Within minutes, the enemy ships were racing away from the solar system at maximum speed. They did not look back. A cheer erupted. Crew members hugged each other, laughed, cried. They had done it. They had driven away the greatest military force in the galaxy without losing a single life. But Captain did not celebrate. She remained in her chair, watching the retreating enemy on her display. Captain said, "We won. Why do you look worried?" "This is not over," said quietly. "The hegemony has ruled the galaxy for 10,000 years. They will not accept this defeat. They will return with more ships, more weapons, and they will not underestimate us again." Smile faded, he understood. "What do we do?" Thought for a moment, then she made a decision. Open a channel, not to the hegemony, to everyone, every inhabited world, every species, every civilization. It is time the galaxy learned the truth about humanity. The communications officer prepared the broadcast. Every transmitter on the powered up. Every relay in the solar system prepared to boost the signal. In a few moments, this message would reach every corner of the galaxy. She stood up from her chair and faced the camera. "My name is Captain of the Earth vessel. Today, our planet was threatened with extinction by the galactic hegemony. We were told to surrender or die. We chose neither." She paused, letting her words sink in. "For 200 years, humanity has hidden its true capabilities. We pretended to be weak. We let the galaxy believe we were primitive. We did this because we did not want war. We did not want conquest. We only wanted to be left in peace." Images of the battle began to play alongside her words. The enemy fleet firing, the shields absorbing everything, the single shot that destroyed the cruiser. But peace was not given to us, so we built this ship. It is 3 kilometers long, its shields can absorb any attack, its weapons can destroy any target, and it is only the first. We have more. This was not entirely true. There was the only ship of its kind, but the galaxy did not need to know that. "We send this message to every species, every civilization, every world. Humanity does not seek war. We do not seek empire, but we will defend ourselves. Anyone who threatens Earth will face the consequences. This is our promise. This is our warning." She took a deep breath. "To the people of the hegemony, we offer peace. We offer trade. We offer friendship, but we will never offer submission. The choice is yours." The broadcast ended. The message raced outward at the speed of light, carried by relay stations across the galaxy. Within hours, billions of beings would see it. Within days, every government would be discussing it. The galaxy would never be the same. On the bridge sat back down in her chair. She felt tired, more tired than she had ever felt in her life. "What happens now, Captain?" asked. "Now we wait," said. "We wait and see how the galaxy responds. We have shown them our strength. Now we must show them our wisdom." She looked out at the stars, at the vast universe that had suddenly become much more interesting. "History changed today. Everything that happens from now on will be different. I hope we made the right choice." Nodded slowly. "We defended our home, we saved our people. I cannot think of a more right choice than that." Smiled slightly. He was right. Whatever came next, they had done what they needed to do. The hung in space, its lights shining like a beacon. Below it, Earth turned slowly, blue and green and beautiful. 8 billion humans looked up at the stars, knowing that something had changed forever. They were no longer alone. They were no longer afraid. And the galaxy was finally paying attention. The message spread across the galaxy like fire through dry grass. Within hours, it reached the inner worlds of the hegemony. Within days, it reached the outer territories. Within a week, Every intelligent being in known space had seen Captain's broadcast, and everywhere silence fell. Fleet Commander Doha watched the reactions from this communication center. She was in charge of monitoring galactic responses, and what she saw amazed her. On hegemony worlds, military leaders held emergency meetings. Their faces, when shown on news broadcasts, looked pale and worried. For 10,000 years they had ruled through strength. Now, a single planet had revealed strength greater than theirs. On conquered worlds, the reaction was different. Whispers of hope spread among oppressed species. If humans could stand against the hegemony, perhaps they could too. Perhaps freedom was possible. And on neutral worlds, leaders studied the broadcast again and again, analyzing every word, every image. They calculated. They planned. They prepared for a galaxy that was about to change. Commander Doha, one of her officers, said, "We are receiving a message from the Hegemony High Council. They want to negotiate." Doha smiled. One battle and the mightiest empire in the galaxy wanted to talk. That was the power of the... "Send it to Admiral on Earth," she said. "This is above my level." In the underground command center on Earth, Admiral received the message. He read it carefully 3 times before responding. The hegemony wanted peace. They offered to recognize Earth as an independent world, free from hegemony control. They offered trade agreements, diplomatic relations, and a promise never to threaten human space again. In exchange, they wanted only one thing: the secret of human technology, specifically the gravity well generator that powered the... Knew this would be their demand. The hegemony was not seeking peace because they respected humanity. They were seeking peace because they feared humanity's weapons. If they could obtain those weapons for themselves, the balance of power would shift again. "Our answer is no," said to his advisors. "The technology stays with us. If they want peace, they can have peace, but they will not have our secrets." The negotiations continued for days. Hegemony diplomats argued, threatened, and begged. They offered wealth beyond imagination. They offered planets, resources, anything humanity wanted. Humanity wanted only to be left alone. The captain used this time to rest her crew and repair minor damage from the battle. The ship had performed perfectly, but space combat was hard on equipment. Every system needed checking. Every component needed maintenance. During this time, received many visitors. Ambassadors from other species arrived in small ships, requesting permission to come aboard. They wanted to see with their own eyes. They wanted to meet the humans who had humbled the hegemony. Allowed some of them aboard. She gave them a tour of the ship, showed them its size and complexity. She did not show them the weapons or the power core, but she showed them enough. One visitor, an ambassador from a species called the, spoke to privately after the tour. "Captain," he said, "my people have been subjects of the hegemony for 3,000 years. We have dreamed of freedom, but we never believed it was possible. Now, because of you, we believe." Felt the weight of his words. The broadcast she had sent was not just a warning to the hegemony. It was a message of hope to everyone they had conquered. "Ambassador," she said carefully, "humanity does not seek to lead a rebellion. We only want to protect our home." "I understand," they said, "but sometimes a single light can illuminate a dark room. Whether you intended it or not, Captain, you have become that light." He left the ship soon after, but his words stayed with for a long time. In the hegemony capital, the High Council held continuous sessions. The council was made up of the 12 most powerful leaders in the empire, representing the 12 founding species. For 10,000 years, they had agreed on most things. Now, they were divided. Some wanted war. They argued that the hegemony could not allow a single planet to defy them. If they showed weakness, their empire would collapse. Other conquered species would rebel. Trading partners would demand better terms. Everything they had built would crumble. "We must destroy Earth," one council member said. Whatever the cost, we will build 1,000 ships, 1,000,000 ships if necessary. We will crush them. Others were more cautious. They had seen the footage of the battle. They understood what the human weapons could do. You speak of building 1,000,000 ships, another council member replied. That would take decades, and even then we do not know if we can overcome human defenses. Meanwhile, our empire bleeds. Every day we receive reports of unrest on conquered worlds. The humans have given them hope. Hope is dangerous. The debate continued for days without resolution. Meanwhile, the hegemony's position grew weaker. Some conquered species began openly resisting their rulers. Trading agreements were renegotiated. Allies who had once been loyal began to question their allegiance. The empire that had ruled the galaxy for 10 was beginning to crack. On Earth, monitored these developments carefully. He understood that the hegemony's internal problems were good for humanity in the short term, but they also created new dangers. If the hegemony collapses, he told his advisors, chaos will follow. Wars will break out across the galaxy. Millions will die. We did not want this. What choice did we have? One advisor asked. They threatened our extinction. I know, said, but we must find a way to prevent galactic war. We must use our position to promote stability, not chaos. It was a difficult balance. Humanity was now a major power in the galaxy, whether they wanted to be or not. They could not simply hide behind their shields and ignore what happened around them. Sent a new message to the Hegemony High Council. It was simple and direct. We do not seek your destruction. We do not seek to steal your empire. We only seek to exist in peace. If you will respect our independence and stop threatening us, we will not interfere in your affairs. But if you continue to threaten us or if you attack us again, we will respond with our full strength. The choice is yours. The message was a compromise. It offered the hegemony a way to save face while avoiding further conflict. They could tell their subjects that they had chosen peace, not that they had been defeated. For days the High Council debated. Finally, they reached a decision. We accept the human terms, the official response said. Earth will be recognized as an independent world. The hegemony will not interfere in human affairs. In return, humans will not interfere in hegemony affairs. Let there be peace between our peoples. On Earth, the announcement was met with celebration. People danced in the streets. Families hugged each other and cried with joy. For 200 years, they had lived under the shadow of potential annihilation. Now, that shadow was gone. On the crew celebrated too. Music played in the common rooms. Food and drinks were shared. For one night, the tension and fear of the past weeks were forgotten. But Captain did not celebrate. She sat alone in her quarters looking out at the stars. Found her there, hours after the celebration had ended. Captain, are you all right? Was silent for a moment, then she spoke. Do you know why I became a naval officer? You never told me. My grandmother was one of the first engineers to work on this ship. She spent her entire life on this project. She used to tell me stories about why it was important, not because of the technology, not because of the weapons, but because of what it represented. What did it represent? Hope said. Hope that humanity could survive in a dangerous universe. Hope that we could protect ourselves without becoming monsters. Hope that one day we could live in peace. She turned to face. Today we achieved that hope. We have peace, but I worry about what comes next. The galaxy is watching us. Other species are looking to us for leadership. The hegemony is weakening. Everything is changing. Is that bad? Not necessarily, but it is a great responsibility. We did not ask to become a galactic power. We only wanted to protect our home. Now we have influence we never sought. We have power we never wanted. And everyone is waiting to see what we do with it. Sat down next to her. Captain, I have served with you for 15 years. I have watched you make difficult decisions in impossible situations. You always find a way to do what is right. Whatever challenges come next, you will face them the same way. Smiled slightly. Thank you, I needed to hear that. They sat together in silence, watching the stars. The galaxy was vast and full of dangers, but it was also full of possibilities. Humanity had taken its first step onto the galactic stage. The journey was just beginning. Far away on dozens of worlds, other species watched and wondered. The humans had shown them something new, a different way to be powerful, a strength that did not require cruelty or conquest. Some of them began to dream of a different kind of galaxy, a galaxy where strength was used to protect, not to dominate, where peace was valued more than empire. It was a small dream, barely more than a whisper, but like all great changes, it started with a single moment. The moment when Earth unveiled its hidden, and stillness descended across the galaxy. Everything after that was different. Everything after that was new. 1 year had passed since the day Earth revealed its secret. 1 year since the rose from the ocean. 1 year since the galaxy changed forever. Lieutenant sat at her desk in the Historical Records Division of the Earth Defense Force. Her job was to document everything that had happened since the revelation. Every event, every decision, every consequence. Future generations would read her reports and understand how humanity transformed from a hidden planet to a galactic power. Today, she was writing the conclusion of her first annual report. She stared at the blank screen for a long time before beginning. In the 12 months since the emergence of she wrote, human civilization has changed more than in the previous 200 years combined. The changes touch every aspect of our society, from politics to economics to culture. This report summarizes the most significant developments. She paused, thinking about where to begin. So much had happened. It was difficult to organize. She decided to start with the diplomatic changes. In the past year, Earth had established formal relations with over 300 species. Ambassadors arrived daily, seeking trade agreements, technology sharing, and military alliances. The humans accepted some offers and politely declined others. They were careful about who they allied with and what they promised. The hegemony had honored the peace agreement mostly. There had been some incidents, small ships probing human defenses, spies trying to steal technology, but nothing serious. The High Council was too busy dealing with internal problems to cause trouble for Earth. Those internal problems were significant. A dozen conquered species had declared independence in the past year. The hegemony had crushed some rebellions but lost others. Their empire, once unshakable, was crumbling at the edges. Did not feel happy about this. Millions of beings had died in the rebellions. Many more would die before stability returned. Humanity had not caused these rebellions directly, but their victory had inspired them. There was blood on human hands, even if it was indirect. She wrote about the economic changes next. Earth had suddenly become the most desirable trading partner in the galaxy. Every species wanted access to human markets. Every company wanted human technology. The global economy had grown by 30% in 1 year, and experts predicted it would double within 5 years. But this growth brought problems too. Inflation was rising. Traditional industries were struggling to adapt. Some countries were growing rich while others fell behind. The world's governments were working together to manage these challenges, but it was not easy. The cultural changes were perhaps the most dramatic. For 200 years, humanity had known they were not alone in the universe, but they had kept this knowledge secret, shared only with those who needed to know. Now, everyone knew. Alien visitors walked the streets of major cities. Alien music played on human radios. Alien food appeared in human restaurants. For some people, this was exciting. For others, it was terrifying. Protests had occurred in some regions, calling for limits on alien immigration. Some religions struggled to adapt their teachings to the new reality. Some people simply could not accept that the universe was so much larger than they had imagined. Documented all of this, trying to be fair and accurate. She knew her reports would be read by historians for centuries. She wanted to give them the truth, not propaganda. After finishing the section on cultural changes, she wrote about the military developments. The remained the most powerful ship in the galaxy, but it was no longer alone. Two more were under construction in secret facilities beneath the Pacific. They would be completed within 5 years. Additionally, Earth had begun building conventional warships, smaller, faster vessels that could patrol human space and respond to minor threats. That was too valuable to use for everyday security. It was kept in reserve, a final defense against existential threats. Some people questioned this military buildup. They argued that humanity should use its position of strength to disarm, to show the galaxy that peace was possible without weapons. But the government disagreed. The galaxy was still dangerous. The hegemony might recover. Other threats might emerge. Until the universe became truly peaceful, humanity would maintain its defenses. Agreed with this position, though she understood the opposing view. She had seen too much of galactic history to believe that peace could be maintained without strength. She wrote for hours, documenting every significant event of the past year. Finally, she reached the conclusion. In summary, she wrote, the past year has been one of unprecedented change for humanity. We have risen from obscurity to prominence. We have gained wealth, influence, and power. But we have also gained responsibility. The galaxy looks to us now. Other species see us as an example, a model for how to be strong without being cruel. She paused, thinking carefully about her next words. The question before us is simple but difficult. What kind of power will we be? Will we use our strength to dominate as the hegemony did? Will we build an empire of our own? Or will we find a different path? A path that uses strength to protect the weak, that values peace over conquest, that sees other species as partners rather than subjects. She thought about Captain, who had become one of the most famous humans in the galaxy. In interviews and speeches, always emphasized the same message. Humanity did not seek empire. They sought only to protect their home and live in peace with their neighbors. But knew that intentions and outcomes were not always the same. The hegemony had probably started with good intentions too, thousands of years ago. Power changed things. It corrupted individuals and societies alike. Only time would tell if humanity could resist that corruption. The answer to these questions, she concluded, will be written by our actions in the years to come. This report documents where we have been. The next reports will document where we are going. I hope, when future historians read these words, they will find that humanity chose wisely. I hope they will find that we lived up to the promise of the not just a weapon of war, but a symbol of hope. She saved the report and leaned back in her chair. Through her window, she could see the night sky. Somewhere up there, the orbited Earth, its lights visible even from the surface. A reminder that humanity was protected, a promise that they would never be threatened again. Thought about her father, who had worked on the ship his entire life. He had died before seeing it activated, before seeing its victory over the hegemony. But she liked to think he was watching somehow, proud of what his work had achieved. "We did it, father," she whispered. "We survived, and now we have a chance to build something better." The captain stood on the observation deck, looking down at Earth. The planet turned slowly beneath her, beautiful as always. Clouds swirled over oceans. Lights sparkled on the night side, marking cities where billions of people lived. Stood beside her, as he often did these days. "What are you thinking about, Captain?" he asked. "The future," said, "what it might look like, what we might become." "You worry too much." "Perhaps, but someone has to worry. Someone has to think about the consequences of our actions, the paths we might take." She turned to face him. "When I was young, my grandmother told me a story. She said that in ancient times, when humans first invented powerful weapons, Some people celebrated and some people wept. The ones who celebrated saw only the power. The ones who wept saw the responsibility. Which did your grandmother do? She wept, and then she spent her entire life trying to ensure that the power would be used wisely. Looked back at Earth. I think about her often these days. I wonder if she would be proud of what we have done. I wonder if she would be worried about what we might do. I think, said slowly, that she would be both, proud and worried, because that is what wisdom looks like, celebrating the achievement while remembering the responsibility. Smiled. When did you become so wise? I learned from you, Captain. They stood together in comfortable silence, watching their home planet. Below them, 8 billion humans lived their lives, worked their jobs, loved their families. Most of them never thought about the galaxy or the great changes happening around them. They trusted their leaders to handle such things. It was a heavy trust, but would bear it. She would bear it for her crew, for her planet, for her grandmother who had dreamed of this day. The continued its orbit, circling Earth like a silent guardian. Its weapons were quiet. Its shields were at rest, but everyone in the galaxy knew it was there, watching. And because they knew, peace continued. This was humanity's gift to the universe. Not conquest, not empire, just the promise that somewhere there was a species that would use its strength to protect rather than destroy, that would choose mercy over cruelty, that would light a candle rather than curse the darkness. The stillness that had descended across the galaxy on the day of revelation had not lifted. It had transformed into something else, something like peace, something like hope. The journey was far from over. There would be challenges ahead, dangers and difficulties that no one could predict, but humanity would face them together as they always had. One ship, one planet, one species. Standing against the darkness, shining like a star. And the galaxy, for the first time in 10,000 years, believed that tomorrow might be better than today. That was enough. That was everything.